Listen, somebody tried to take my house over a 1% difference in shingle color, and they were planning to sell it to their nephew at auction. Sounds like a bad movie, right? I thought the same until I heard the recording. I'm going to tell you this, like I'd tell it to a friend sitting across the table. Coffee cooling voice going up and down, not a speech, just the ugly, messy truth of what happened to me. We bought that house 2 years ago, my wife and I both in our early 30s after 3 years of hunting and saving every dime. It was a mid-century fixer-upper with a roof from 1967 that leaked when it felt like it. Big yard trees that made the place feel like a secret, a view of the mountains that made my wife cry the first time she walked in. I manage projects for a construction company. I know permits and timelines and how to read a plan. My wife does hospital accounting. She counts so well she could spot a misfiled receipt from a mile away. We thought we were being careful. We thought we were doing it right. Top priority was the roof. I pulled permits, got 3 licensed contractors, submitted the shingle samples and color swatches to the HOA Architectural Committee, every I dotted, every T crossed. Their rules said a decision would take no more than 30 days. I waited 29. Approved. Contractor showed up Monday, scaffolding went up. Half the old shingles came off by noon. Photos from the crew made it look like any ordinary renovation, which it was until it wasn't. Around 2, my contractor calls me sounding confused. Someone just showed up and stopped us. I drive home and see half a roof off a mess in the yard, and an official-looking notice taped to my front door, work stopped approval, revoked shingle color off by 1%. Standing in my driveway, clipboard in hand, smiling like she'd found a lost dog, is the HOA president. 60-something former auditor of some sort, all warmth with razor wire beneath. She tells me the shingles don't match in natural light. I pull out the exact sample that had been approved. They look identical. She claims the board can revoke if actual materials don't match samples, and she implies casually that maybe we tried to save a buck and substitute cheaper stuff. That one hit because we'd scraped the bottom of everything to buy that house. She shrugs when I ask about the rain coming that weekend. Not the HOA's problem. She hands me another notice, restore compliance in 48 hours or face a $100 a day fine. I call an emergency meeting with the review board as the bylaws allow. They say they'll meet next week. That was 6 days away. It rained that weekend hard. Tarps can only do so much. Water got in drywall, ruined in the master boxes we hadn't unpacked, soaked through. Receipts, photos, every little thing. I documented it like my life depended on it. Because apparently it did. When the board finally met, the president brought a professional color analysis that proved our shingles had a different undertone in certain light. Where that analysis came from, she wouldn't say. When I tried to present my evidence, she cut me off. We used expert advice. I asked for the names of those experts confidential. She said fines would continue, liens might follow. In that room, something clicked. This wasn't about shingles. It was about power. I spend my days managing messy construction realities, schedules, contracts, documentation. If someone wanted to play by the book and weaponize the book, I figured I could read the book. So that night I started building a master file. Every email, every certified letter, every photo, every phone log, chronological, neat, impossible to ignore. I started recording calls, keeping notes, scanning anything that moved. The fines kept coming, $100 a day. Certified mail fees added on until after 2 weeks the stack was $1,400. My calls to the HOA president went unanswered. The management company said they were following board directives and couldn't discuss specifics. Then the HOA placed a lien for unpaid fines and fees totaling over $2,000 and reported it to a collection agency. My credit score dropped 127 points overnight. My wife and I had worked years for that score. Watching it fall felt like watching the ground open under us. I called a lawyer who specializes in HOA disputes. He was blunt. The HOA probably overstepped. The revocation looked shaky. But fighting it could cost $8,000 to $12,000 in legal fees, take months. And HOAs have weird powers in our state. They can even foreclose non-judicially if assessments balloon and go unpaid. I felt small and freaked and furious all at once. Then I read the bylaws again. Really read them. The sort of reading you do when you think someone's stealing your house. The bylaws said architectural decisions had to be made by a majority vote of a 3-person committee. Communications I'd gotten were only from the president. The bylaws required a published fine schedule and notice, with opportunity to cure, neither of which matched what I'd been given. Crucially, decisions affecting individual properties had to be made during properly noticed board meetings with a quorum present. Had they done that, I had my doubts. Section 12.3 right there gave any homeowner the right to inspect HOA records. I sent my request cited the bylaw asked for all records related to my case and for meeting minutes for the past year. They replied in 5 business days, yes, you can review them at our office, pay copying fees. I took a day off, drove to that office with a portable scanner and a ton of patience. What I found made my jaw drop. The architectural committee hadn't met properly in over 8 months. Decisions had been made unilaterally by the president. Signatures forged or signed without meetings. Financial records showed money moved between operating funds, reserve funds, legal expense accounts without documentation. Payments were made to companies I'd never heard of, companies that shared an address with the president's business. Patterns emerged, fines levied inconsistently, always just enough to justify liens and collections. It looked very much like a protection racket dressed in bylaws. I spent 6 hours scanning 400 pages. Later, I had a map of the mess. Spreadsheets showed missing quorums, timelines showed arbitrary enforcement, and a money trail suggested conflict of interest. I had proof that this was not just incompetence, this was abuse. The twist I needed came by accident. I was outside edging the lawn when the president walked by and started chatting with a neighbor. I had my small digital recorder clipped to my pocket, call it paranoia or call it preparation. She told the neighbor she was looking forward to the annual meeting because there were some properties she needed to address, and casually that she'd already talked to a buyer who'd scoop up one of the foreclosed houses, her nephew. She didn't know I could hear. I did. I had her voice admitting she intended to push me out so family could profit. I took everything, the recordings, the spreadsheets, the scanned minutes to the annual meeting. I set up a laptop projector, printed copies, the whole awkward theater of accountability. When I hit play on that recording, the room went silent. People in the front rows leaned forward like it was the end of the world or the start of one. I walked them through the finances, the missing quorums, the lien practices, the way fees had been funneled. One board member who looked truly surprised stood up and resigned on the spot, saying he'd been kept in the dark. The room smelled like anger and something else, relief maybe. Votes were taken. The president was removed by a landslide. The interim board immediately started undoing the mess. Every fine reversed liens, lifted letters to credit bureaus asking for corrections. A forensic audit revealed over $40,000 had been improperly routed to companies linked to the former president. Rather than go to criminal court, she agreed to repay and resigned from neighborhood governance. She ended up selling her house to cover restitution. Karma, in the slow American municipal way, took its course. My credit was restored within 60 days. The HOA paid to repair the storm damage to my house and covered my consultation fees. The roof was reapproved within 24 hours and finished in 2 days. Neighbors told me the house looked great. A kid waved when I climbed the new deck that first summer evening to watch the sun drop behind the mountains. That feeling sitting there, glass in hand, wind in the trees, was worth everything. If there's a moral, it's this: rules protect you if you know how to use them. A rule used as a weapon can be turned back by the same rule when you make the process visible. And sometimes the most effective move is not to run to court first, but to gather paper, get loud, and make sure everybody who could be hurt sees what's really been happening. One quick related story: I also worked from home for a small industrial controls company, underpaid but flexible, which suited me because I had passive income and time. New management came in, instituted schedule-based vacations, and expected me to fly off on a moment's notice for a week-long fix without extra pay. I said no. They threatened resign. So I did the literal thing. I gave my 2 weeks' notice, legally required, and refused to finish a huge mess of a project in a week while I was on vacation. The company then fell into financial ruin a few weeks later, missed paychecks, frozen accounts, possible bankruptcy. I didn't celebrate, but I also didn't feel guilty. Sometimes the rules protect workers. Sometimes they expose management's lack of planning. So what do you think? Should local boards have stricter oversight? Are there better checks we should demand before volunteer powers can ruin people's lives? Have you ever been bullied by official papers and fake authority? Tell me what you did or what you wish you'd done because someone else might need that exact trick to save their roof, their credit, or their home.